One night, Nurse Anna Monroe is called to care for a special patient, billionaire Grant Carter, who has been in a coma for a year after a mysterious accident. She begins to talk to him, care for him, and one day she notices that he is showing signs of life. Stay tuned for the ending of this story, and don't forget to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on new stories. Anna Monroe walked quickly down the long corridor, Westbridge Private Hospital, feeling a little nervous. A call to the head doctor did not bode well. Either a reprimand awaited her, or a sudden transfer to another department. She feverishly went over the last shifts in her head, trying to remember if she had made a mistake, but nothing reprehensible came to mind. Reaching the massive dark wood door with a sign reading, "Dr. Harris, Chief of Neurology," she took a deep breath and knocked. "Come in," came a muffled voice. The office smelled of antiseptic and expensive leather. Dr. Harris stood by the window, his hands clasped behind his back, his gaze riveted on the city panorama. Tall, with penetrating gray eyes, he always seemed to Anna a man who was difficult to upset. "Anna," he finally said, turning around, "I need to assign you a special patient." She straightened up involuntarily, ready for her new assignment. "Of course, sir. Who are we talking about?" Dr. Harris silently picked up a thick folder from his desk and handed it to her. Anna took it and glanced at the name on the cover. "Grant Carter," she murmured. The name sounded familiar. She lifted the corner of the folder and saw a black and white newspaper clipping. It showed a mangled sports car lying on its side at the foot of a bridge. The headline screamed, "Billionaire's Tragedy! Grant Carter in critical condition after horrific accident." Everything became clear. Grant Carter is one of the most influential figures in the world of finance. Heir to an empire, Carter Enterprises, a billionaire known for his toughness in business, charisma, and scandalous personal life. A few years ago, he was at the peak of his popularity until one night, when a fatal accident occurred. His car skidded off the road and fell off a bridge. After that, his name appeared in the news less and less often, until the public forgot about him. "He's been in a coma for a year now," Harris said, watching her reaction. "He's been stable since the accident, but there's little chance of him waking up." Anna turned her gaze to the doctor, not understanding why they chose her. "Excuse me, but why me?" "Because he needs care that is not just protocol-based, but attentive. Most of the staff do their jobs mechanically, and his family has practically stopped visiting him. He is left alone." She thought about it. Working with comatose patients is not the most rewarding. They don't react, they don't respond, and sometimes it even seems like they don't exist except in medical reports. But something about the matter made her nod. "I agree." Dr. Harris smiled slightly and gestured toward the door. "Your shift starts tonight. Late evening." Anna stood in front of the door toward 709, where the man the world thought was lost had been for a year. She took a deep breath and walked in. The room was strikingly different from the other wards. Instead of white, sterile walls, there was a soft gray color, subdued lighting, expensive furniture. Grant Carter lay on a wide bed, hooked up to machines that rhythmically counted his heartbeat. Anna froze. Despite his stillness, he looked almost alive. His cheekbones were sharp, his dark eyelashes casting shadows on his pale skin, the light stubble on his face. If it weren't for the silence, he might have seemed to be asleep. She came closer, took a soft towel out of the warm water and began to carefully wipe his hands. "I believe you are my new patient," she muttered, not expecting an answer. Silence. "I'm Anna. I think we'll be spending a lot of time together." She smiled, even though she knew he wouldn't see it. There was a strange sense of closeness in the air. She couldn't explain it, but something stirred inside her, a premonition that this meeting would change everything. Anna quickly settled into the routine that came with caring for comatose patients. Every morning and evening, she would come to room 709, check the machines, monitor the IVs, change the bed linens, and make sure Grant's body remained clean. These actions were automatic, habitual, but over time, something changed. She started talking to him. At first it was just filling the silence. It looks like it's going to rain today, she said one day, adjusting his pillow. I hope you don't mind gray days. Personally, I like them. They set the mood. There was, of course, no answer. Don't you want to talk? Okay, I'll take the initiative. She chuckled, feeling a little strange. But then the conversations became part of their ritual. She talked about her shifts, about the patients, about Nurse Linda, who tried to flirt with Dr. Harris, and about Mr. Walters, the old man who swore at the food in the cafeteria every day. Believe me, Grant, you couldn't stand the coffee here, she said one day, wiping his forehead with a warm napkin. It tastes like it was brewed from sad experiences and broken hopes. Her voice sounded light, but inside there was a heaviness. Every time she looked at his motionless face, she felt sad. Was there something alive in him? Or was he already gone, leaving behind only a shell? But then something strange happened. One day, when she wet the towel once again and began to dry his hand, she thought she saw his fingers twitch slightly. She froze, not knowing if it was just her mind trying to see something that wasn't there. She held her breath and looked at his hand, waiting for him to do it again. Nothing. She shook her head. Now I'm starting to make things up, huh? The next morning she felt it again. This time, as she was adjusting his pillow, something touched her wrist, a slight, barely perceptible movement. Her heart began to pound. She looked at his hand again. Nothing. She tried to convince herself it could have been a muscle spasm. It happened. And yet, a strange feeling was growing in her chest. The next day, she deliberately watched his hands as she wiped them with a damp towel. And then she saw it. A subtle, almost imperceptible twitching of the fingers. Her heart sank. She carefully placed her hand on his. Grant? She whispered, not realizing she had said his name out loud. He didn't answer, but the silence in the room seemed different. She took a deep breath and did something she hadn't done before. She squeezed his fingers. And at that moment she felt a response movement. Her breath caught. It wasn't a spasm. It was a conscious effort. Grant Carter showed signs of life. Anna couldn't get what had happened out of her head. The movement of his fingers, however slight, but real, the feeling of his response, however subtle. She tried to convince herself that it was just a reflex, a random impulse, but something inside her told her otherwise. The next day, when she entered the room, she went straight to the bed. Grant lay as motionless as always, but now she looked at him differently. She approached slowly, ran her hand over his palm, but there was no reaction. So yesterday it wasn't real? She whispered, smiling slightly disappointedly. Of course, there was no answer. Still, she couldn't just brush off what she felt. I know you're there, Grant, she said quietly, sitting down next to him. And if you can really hear me, give me a sign. Any sign. But Grant remained motionless. The day went on as usual, checking IVs, changing sheets, wiping his skin with warm wipes. It had become routine, but now every little thing, every movement seemed more significant. Later that evening, as she was carefully blotting his neck with a towel, something incredible happened. Grant took a deep breath. It wasn't a mechanical sigh. It was something else. His chest rose a little more sharply than usual, and the fingers on his left hand trembled. Anna froze. Grant? Her voice dropped to a half-whisper. Silence. She continued her work, trying to suppress her excitement, but her hands were shaking slightly. She felt it again, a subtle movement, but stronger now. Her heart was pounding. And suddenly, as she was wiping his face with a damp cloth, his fingers tightened around her wrist. At first it was a weak pressure, but it grew. Anna froze, looking at his hand, then looked up and felt the whole world around her slow down. Grant Carter opened his eyes. It was just a moment, but it changed everything. His eyelids fluttered and then parted, revealing eyes the color of the dark ocean. They were clouded, filled with confusion, but there was life in them. He blinked, his eyes darting around the room as if he was trying to figure out where he was. Anna couldn't breathe. Grant, she breathed out, trying to pull herself together. His lips moved slightly. He tried to say something, but only a weak wheeze came out of his throat. She jumped up abruptly, pressing the panic button. "He's awake!" Her voice shook as she shouted into the void. "We need help!" The door swung open and doctors and nurses rushed into the room. But Anna did not leave. "Grant Carter, the man everyone thought was lost, has just returned." Room 709 was bustling with activity. Doctors and nurses hurried around the bed, checking vitals, shining flashlights into Grant's eyes, asking him questions he couldn't yet answer. He looked lost, his eyes darting around as if he were trying to hold on to a reality that was slipping away from him. Anna stood a little to the side, watching as her patient, who had been a silent shadow of himself the day before, now struggled to comprehend what was happening. "Grant," Dr. Harris's voice was stern, but there was a hint of surprise in it. "Can you hear me? If you can, blink." Blinked. "Good. Now try moving your fingers." The fingers twitched, with difficulty, but they obeyed. "Excellent." Dr. Harris nodded. "We have a long way to go, but you've taken the first step." Anna noticed how Grant's lips trembled, as if he was trying to say something, but no sound came out. "Take your time, Mr. Carter," Harris continued. "Your vocal cords haven't been used for a long time, it'll take a little time to recover." It was all happening too fast, and Anna could hardly believe that this day had come. She knew she had been right when she felt him move, trying to break through the darkness. But now that he was actually awake, it all seemed even more unreal. When the main tests were completed and the doctors began to leave, Anna was left alone with him. He looked at her, his eyes still clouded, but no longer empty. "I knew you'd come back." She smiled, coming closer. Grant blinked, his gaze focusing on her face and something like recognition flickering in it. The next few days were a real test. The body, which had been immobile for a long time, resisted every new movement, and even simple things like holding a spoon or raising his arm were difficult for Grant. Rehabilitation was painful, requiring patience and perseverance. Anna was nearby. She helped him eat, supervised his exercises, supported him when he made his first attempts to sit up without assistance. But something else was bothering him. "Is something wrong?" she asked one day, noticing him staring sullenly at the ceiling, clearly lost in thought. He frowned slightly, then slowly turned his gaze to her. "An accident." His voice was hoarse but clear. "I don't remember anything." Anna felt something inside her tighten. "It's normal, Grant. Memory can come back slowly after a trauma like that. But I feel..." He paused, choosing his words, then said with difficulty, "It was not an accident." Anna froze. "Why do you think so?" Grant shook his head. "I don't know. It's a feeling. Like something's wrong." He closed his eyes, trying to remember, but his head was empty. Anna couldn't get his words out of her head. Her thoughts were spinning around what he had said. Of course, could she really believe his guesses? The doctors explained that memory is restored chaotically after a coma, and perhaps he was simply trying to fill in the gaps with his own imagination. But something else worried her. She pulled out his medical file, then went to the hospital archives, reading through the accident reports. It all looked standard. The car lost control, crashed into a guardrail, then fell off a bridge. But one point in the forensic report gave her pause. The braking system was damaged. Anna reread this moment several times, not believing her eyes. The brakes had not simply failed, this was not an accident. They had been damaged before the accident. Grant was right. Someone tried to kill him. Anna sat at her desk in the hospital's archive room, feeling a chill run down her spine. She read the line in the report over and over again, but the words remained the same. The braking system was damaged before the accident. It was not an accident. Someone wanted Grant Carter not to survive. With the report in hand, she headed to his room. He had noticeably strengthened in recent weeks. He could now sit without assistance, tried to move around the room on his own, and his voice was no longer as weak as it had been in the first days after waking up. When she entered, he looked up at her and immediately realized that something had happened. "Something wrong?" She took a deep breath, then placed the report on the table next to the bed. I found something in your file. He frowned, then picked up the papers and began to read. At first his gaze was simply attentive, but then his jaw tensed and his fingers clenched so hard that his knuckles turned white. They say the brakes were damaged, he said slowly, as if he didn't quite believe what he had written. Anna nodded. It wasn't an accident, Grant. Someone did it on purpose. He leaned back against the pillows, closed his eyes, then ran his hand over his face. I knew something was wrong. You don't remember anything about the accident? He shook his head. Just fragments. The road, the rain. The headlights in the mirror. I remember feeling anxious, like something was wrong. And then, nothing. Anna sat on the edge of the bed. It means that someone wanted you dead. Someone who had access to you, knew about your routes, about your car. She fell silent. There was silence in the room. Grant looked at her, and then said slowly, Nathan. Anna shuddered. Your brother? He gritted his teeth. He was always jealous. He thought that my father gave me everything and him nothing. That I took his place, his future. But to kill you. Grant closed his eyes. If it really was him, then he didn't just want to take me away. He wanted to take my life. They began looking for evidence. Grant, though he couldn't leave the hospital yet, used his connections to gain access to company documents, bank transfers, contracts signed shortly before the accident. And a few days later they found the key piece of evidence. A large sum of money was transferred to a private mechanic just a week before the accident. The recipient's name is a person known for working with criminal structures and for carrying out custom-made accidents. Sender name: Nathan Carter. Grant clutched the phone in his hand. I'll deal with him. Anna placed her hand on his palm. Not by myself. The meeting with Nathan took place in his mansion. Anna and Grant sat opposite him in a spacious office furnished in dark tones. Nathan looked calm, even slightly mocking. I didn't expect to see you on your feet so soon, brother. He chuckled, leaning back in his chair. Grant looked at him silently. Do you have something to say? Nathan sighed, pretended to think about it, and then shrugged. I don't see any point in denying it. You've already figured it all out, haven't you? Anna felt a chill run through her insides. You tried to kill your own brother. Yes. Grant clenched his fists but held his ground. Why? Nathan chuckled. Because you were always first. Father loved you more, trusted you with everything, and I got the crumbs. You are the heir, you are the one everyone idolizes. He tilted his head to the side. Is this fair? Did you want to replace me? Yes, Nathan said without a shadow of a doubt. Silence hung in the room before the office door swung open and 2 police officers entered the room. Nathan Carter, a stern voice said. You are under arrest for attempted murder. Grant kept his eyes on his brother as he was handcuffed. Nathan, realizing that he had lost, grinned. Do you think you won? Grant did not answer. He just watched in silence as his brother, the one he had known since childhood, the one he had once considered his family, walked away, accompanied by the police. After everything was over, Grant and Anna sat for a long time on the roof of the hospital, looking at the city at night. I thought it would be easier after this, he said quietly. Anna squeezed his hand. It hurts, but now you're free. He turned to her, looked into her eyes, and there was something new in his gaze, calm, gratitude, but most of all. You were always there, he said. She smiled. And I will. Grant nodded, then took a deep breath, as if gathering his courage. Anna. She raised her eyebrows. Yes? He took something small out of his pocket, then, without taking his eyes off her, dropped to one knee. Anna froze. You were with me when I was nobody. You believed in me when no one else did. He opened the box, and a ring sparkled inside. I want to spend my whole life with you. She covered her mouth with her hands, feeling tears welling up in her eyes. Will you marry me? Anna sobbed, then threw herself on his neck. Yes. Grant smiled and pulled her into a hug, holding her close, and in that moment he realized that despite everything they had been through, this was not the end. This was the beginning.